Welcome, you are right on time. My name is Gallian, and today we're taking a deep look at the Circula ProTrail, a German-made field watch that's aiming to stand toe-to-toe with some very established names in the category. Now, Circula may not be a household name, but if you've been following the watch scene for long enough, you'll know that it's one of the German independents that's been steadily building credibility. The brand itself actually goes back decades. It was founded in Forsum, Germany, the traditional heart of German watchmaking, and today it's in the hands of a Cornelius Huber. Huber is interesting because he's not just some detached executive running a hobby brand. He's taken what was once a dormant, family-owned company and breathed life back into it. His approach has been methodical, with a clear respect for traditional German watchmaking values, robust engineering, practical designs, and a refusal to chase fleeting hype. And if you hang around enough on Reddit and Facebook groups, you'll see that he's keeping a close eye on what enthusiasts are saying about the brand, for better or worse. I'll link a couple of articles in the comments below for those interested in learning more about Circula's history. It is a somewhat romantic story. Now, the ProTrail line is perhaps the clearest expression of this philosophy. Built as a modern tool watch, it's Circula's answer to the question of what an everyday, do-anything watch can be when you push beyond the basic spec sheet. And then you have the TRTS Edition, which I have created in collaboration with the watch podcast, The Real Time Show. The idea was to take the already capable ProTrail and give it a collector's twist, something a little stealthier, a little meaner, and much more tailored to enthusiasts. Now, before we get into the watch itself though, I want to make an important distinction. Circula is certainly not a microbrand. This is a company with genuine heritage dating back to the 1950s, and while they've had their ups and downs, they firmly re-established themselves today with in-house design, German assembly, and a strong catalog. So, when I evaluate this watch, I'm not going to be grading it on the microbrand curve. I'm holding it to the same standard I would for any established mature brand. And with that comes certain expectations. Finishing quality, thoughtful design, and yes, even things like warranty length. 2 years, which is what Circula currently offers, feels a little light in 2025, especially when 5 years is fast becoming the industry standard at this price point. On paper, the specs look straightforward, but the reality is in the execution. The case comes in at 14mm in diameter with a lug-to-lug of 46mm and a thickness of just a hair over 12. Those numbers suggest wearability for a broad range of wrists, but the case is anything but plain. Whereas so many field watch styles default to a simple, round slab, this one is faceted, making it one of my favorite implementations of field watch design. The ProTrail's case is beautifully sculpted, with multiple intersecting angles and facets that give it real presence on the wrist. It's not a flashy watch, but you can tell a lot of thought went into shaping it so it doesn't just disappear. The sides of the case also feature cutout panels with a grainy texture that reminds me of the desert or a sandy beach. A nice little reminder that you can take this piece places. This case architecture is shared amongst both Circula's ProTrail and ProFlight series of pilot-style watches, so heaps of dial and color configurations to enjoy this awesome piece of design. The bezel is particularly well executed. Rather than being flat and utilitarian, it almost has a stepped profile, with a polished center ring that catches the light just enough to give it a bit of sparkle. Against the rest of the case, which is predominantly matte brushed, that polished ring provides a really smart contrast. It's subtle, but it elevates the watch in a way that you don't often see in this category. The case also features a hardened surface rated to 1200 Vickers. That's about 6 times harder than normal steel. The translation? It's going to look new long after most watches have picked up their first battle scars. Sitting on top is a slightly domed and raised sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, and it's honestly so good that I almost missed the dial completely the first time I handled the watch. Under normal light, it disappears. Under harsh studio lights, though, I spotted some faint radial marks on the dial when I first received it, likely from the hour hand being set a little too close. I flighted with Circula, and here's the impressive part. Cornelius Huber himself replied, organized a return, and had the watch back on my wrist in just a week and a half. That kind of direct, fast, no-nonsense service is rare, and it gave me a lot of confidence in the brand. The dial too is worth spending time on. It's a hypnotically deep black, the kind that seems to swallow light, although you can't really tell based on the photography. You've got that classic Explorer style 369 layout, paired with a white railroad minute track that frames everything neatly, and these are very neatly and very perfectly printed. It's stark, highly legible, and unpretentious, but I do think the indices could have been pushed just a little further. If the cardinal markers and the 5-minute hashes were slightly larger, you'd fill out the negative space more evenly and create even better balance. That said, it's still a dial that works beautifully in practice, big enough to look expansive, helped along by that relatively slim bezel that really maximizes the dial-to-case ratio. Complementing the dial are a set of nice, proportioned broadsword-style hour and minute hands, which feature a matching matte, bead-blasted finish of the case, along with striking orange-tipped second hands doing the rounds. Speaking of legibility, the ProTrail does a strong job here. The matte dial keeps reflections down, the hands are well proportioned, and the contrast is excellent. The lume is super luminova and it's perfectly adequate. And though it's not going to be compared with a Seiko, a hardcore dive watch, or even the king of, lume wise, but for a field watch, it's right where it should be. Turn the watch over and you'll find an engraved caseback specific to this edition. Together with the signed and lumed screw-down crown, the watch comes in at a more than sufficient 150 meters of water resistance for just about any typical land or water-based activity for the everyday person. It's not a display caseback, mind you, and that's for a good reason. This watch houses a Faraday cage, granting it a serious resistance against magnetic fields, up to 80,000 anti-magnetic resistance, or I believe about 1,000 Gauss. It's a spec you rarely see at this price point, and it has consequences not just on paper, but in the hand. Because, let me tell you, this is the heaviest watch I've ever owned relative to its size. The watch head has a heft that's immediately noticeable, and while that might put some people off, it also communicates a certain solidity. You feel like you're wearing something designed to endure, and really that weight comes from the purpose. The full, soft iron cage inside is not just some marketing gimmick. It's an engineering choice, and the result is a watch that feels like it can shrug off environments that would wreak havoc on a lesser movement. That brings us neatly to the bracelet. At first glance, it looks like a standard, matte-finished, bead-blasted bracelet, but there's more going on here. Circula actually uses a hardened coating, which gives it surprising resilience to scratches. It's paired with a folding clasp that's solid, well-machined, and secure. But a good 2 years on from its original release, I have to call it out for what it lacks. There is still no on-the-fly adjustment. It's an omission that stings a little because tool watches like this practically beg for it. Strap changes are made easier thanks to the quick-release spring bars, but even then I found the fit of the end links on the bracelet against the case to be slightly awkward, undermining some of that convenience. So all in all, the bracelet is good, but far from perfect. On the wrist, the story is a little complicated. For reference, my wrist is 6.2 inches, and while the dimensions make it wearable, the weight definitely makes its presence felt. This is not a featherweight strap monster, but, and this is important, it is versatile. The design is understated enough that it can shift personalities. Throw it on the bracelet and it's every inch a tool watch. Swap it to a thick leather strap and it dresses up surprisingly well. Put it on canvas or rubber and you're ready for outdoor wear. The caveat is that lighter straps can make the watch feel a little bit more top-heavy than usual. So my recommendation is to stick with thicker straps that balance out the case weight. When you do, the watch shines in a way few microbrands manage, and even big brands manage, and becomes a true daily companion. Inside is the Sellita SW200 in elaborate grade, hidden beneath that Faraday cage. It's not flashy, but it doesn't need to be. This is a tried and true workhorse movement, Swiss-made, reliable, and easy to service. Beating at 28,800 beats per hour, within approximately 42 hours of power reserve, this movement appears to have been regulated as it was running at a pretty exceptional plus or minus 3 seconds a day when tested in 3 positions. Furthermore, Circula has modified it to remove the phantom date position, something that most brands don't bother with at this level, but that makes for a much more refined user experience. Which brings us to price and value. This TRTS edition sits in the bracket where competition is fierce. You've got Certina with their renowned double security action system and robust titanium case divers, as well as field watches for the action-oriented individual. You've got Sin, always a benchmark when it comes to tool watches with engineering credibility. If you stretch your budget, you're getting close to that Tudor Ranger. But none of these give you this level of anti-magnetism paired with a hardened, sculpted case at this price. The Omega Realmaster or the Rolex Milgauss used to be the benchmark here, but both are now discontinued and cost many times more. Viewed from that perspective, Circula still does feel competitive, though it's no longer the runaway bargain it was when it was first released. Instead, I'd say it still wins on character. It feels considered. It feels like it was designed by someone who genuinely cares about what enthusiasts want to wear, rather than just what looks good on an ad campaign. So, who is this watch for? Not someone chasing luxury polish, nor someone who wants a feather of light barely their pace. This is for enthusiasts who appreciate German engineering, who want something tough but with a bit more design flair than the usual field watch, and who are okay with a watch that makes its presence known on the wrist. For electrical engineers, MRI technicians, welders, and cutting machine operators, as well as many others faced with regular exposure to high magnetic fields, you'll have a peace of mind knowing that your watch's movement is far less likely to go off kilter due to the movement magnetization. And for a clumsy person like me who tends to knock into things randomly, this is in many ways the perfect throw on and go as I go about my day. So where do I personally land on the ProTrail? I think it's one of the best executions of a modern field watch under €1,000. The case design is outstanding, the wearability is excellent, and it's versatile enough to fit into just about any situation you could think of. That said, I do think Circula could push things a little further in a couple of areas, some of which I've touched on, especially on dial design, the bracelet integration, and probably an improvement in the amount of warranty that you're getting for each of the watches on offer. It'd go a long way to helping it to position itself better as a bit more of an established player. Overall though, I do think the ProTrail is a seriously compelling package. If you're looking for a field watch that isn't just another Hamilton, a Tudor Ranger, or a Rolex Explorer clone, that offers originality, quality, and genuine thoughtfulness in its design, this one is absolutely worth considering. For me personally, it's staying in my collection, at least until my next ultimate beater watch arrives from yet another microbrand. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more deep dives into interesting timepieces, from entry level all the way through to luxury. Until then, keep your watches wound so you are right on time. I'll see you in the next one.